let us kick off our webinar today. Welcome once again from my side in our webinar that you are joining today, where we will be talking about building a resilient business model with outcome management and OKRs, featuring our special guest, Markus. More about him in just a second. First of all, real briefly about myself, I'm going to be your host for today. Thomas, I also have my colleague Teresa with me in the background from WorkPath. I myself am part of the customer education team here at WorkPath, meaning that we're looking after all of the training and education and development needs that you have around OKRs and outcome management. WorkPath, what is it that we do as a company? We are your enterprise platform for anything outcome management with OKRs and beyond. And we're here to help companies to define their most important goals and turn their strategy into meaningful outcomes. Now, I mentioned this already earlier, and I am very happy and excited to introduce to you our main speaker for today's webinar, Markus Blatt. He is the founder and managing partner at neueBeratung. He has 20 plus years of experience in management consulting. He is an editor, an author, and blogger. And also make sure to check out his podcast, You Normal, a certified OKR coach. And with his consultancy, neueBeratung, always topping the charts with all the awards around best consultants, best consultancies, and top consulting by the various committees and magazines. Markus, very nice to have you here. How are you today?
Yes, thanks for having me. I'm fine and really excited about our talks that we have and all the questions from the audience.
Awesome. So am I, and I'm sure so is everyone in the audience today as well. I'm going to just introduce you to two more topics before we kick it off with Markus and his topic. First of all, we are really curious to actually hear from you two things. Are you already working with OKRs, and how familiar are you with this idea and concept of resilience? So please have a look. There should be a pop-up that you see in Zoom. We can now have a moment and vote on these two questions. All right, many of you voting already. So already working with OKRs, roughly 50% of you, 16% are saying no, and then roughly 30 somehow. So thank you very much for sharing that. With that, we can also jump to the next question. How familiar are you with this concept of resilience? All right, looking at a good mix of everything, not at all, a bit and a lot. So a bit with, once again, a little more than 50%, and then not at all still 30%. So there's going to be a lot to learn from Markus. He's going to introduce you to that in more detail in just a moment. And then some of you also saying a lot. Great. Thanks for sharing your experience so far. Now, I'm going to give you one more thing before we hand over to Markus, and I'm just briefly going to introduce you to this idea and this concept of outcome management. What is it actually? And I think it's easy to introduce that with an example. If you think about maybe the past decade in business and a big shift that we have already seen, we've seen that customers have been moving more and more away from products and outputs, more towards outcome. And I think a great example is always Spotify or any other music or video streaming service, where previously you might have wanted to put this CD on your shelf and then put it into the player and listen to it at home, whereas now our customers are more and more looking towards actually getting the outcome from that, which is the listening experience with the music at their fingertip on the phone whenever they want to, in a convenient place at a convenient time, and hopefully also a convenient price for them. And so with that, an outcome is really primarily defined by the value that it generates for its customer or even the beneficiary. You don't always have to think about the customer as the end customer. It could even be an internal colleague of yours that is benefiting from the work that you do. And so a starting point for said outcome is always a customer need that you can identify either through your feedback channels or through your numbers that you're tracking in the background. And the idea is that outcomes always pay into your overarching longer-term strategy or KPIs, so that eventually your success can be continuously measured through leading indicators, already predicting with the idea of leading indicators if you're getting to your goal or to your outcome. And then last but not least, the one thing that we really want to avoid in this space is output waste. So basically describing work that you do working on outputs that doesn't add any value to the customer. And so with this idea, we really want to look at two things in this economy of today: the increased relevancy of the customer centricity, so really putting the customer in the foreground, and also understanding, as I mentioned, that not every customer has to be your end customer. And then also with this great opportunity of us having loads and loads more data out there that we can use to actually make much better decisions and looking at outcomes and measuring if you're achieving them through hard data. And so at the end of the day, you combine these two, and there's a great opportunity for you out there, which is outcome management through OKRs. And in that way, you can benefit, and many other enterprises can actually benefit from that, looking at more decentralized decisions with team being more flexible, being more autonomous, rethinking budgets and structures that you have, really looking also, once again, at the customer in the center, looking at cross-functional teams, and also working in shorter cycles, shorter planning and review loops. With that, and this very short introduction, handing it over to Markus. Stage is yours. You're also going to take over the screen, and everyone enjoy the session.
Yes, thank you a lot, Thomas. And I'm going to share the presentation, and I hope you can see it right now.
We can, yes.
Okay, perfect. So thanks for this warm introduction, and also for clarifying what outcome orientation, because when we talk about resilience, we are very near and close to the point of outcome and what it makes to our value proposition and to our business. So what is resilience? And if you look at the picture, right, first a lot of mud, and the mud stands for all those situations and new development that we are facing with in the last years and right now. A crisis here, a crisis there, value chain chaos, the war, the pandemic, and so on. And resilience is the ability to adapt to these new situations that we are facing with. And because we have a lot of mud right now, we also have a lot of talking about resilience. And even a friend of mine has a new job since a few weeks, and she's now head of business resilience in a big company in Germany. So we incorporated in organizations, and so that means that resilience is coming more and more to the forefront. When we talk about resilience as a concept for us as humans, psychology is speaking of the 7 pillars of resilience. So I'm going to go over these very quickly. You need to be optimistic. You need to accept what you can change in your life and what you cannot change. You need to focus on solutions and not get lost in the problem. You need to take personal responsibility for your life, have a positive planning for the future, set goals and believe in them, and finally, you have to have self-reflection, know yourself, know what you can and know what you cannot, know your strengths and your weaknesses, and that makes a resilient person. So, knowing what a resilient person is, what does it mean to business, and how can we bring our business out of the mud? So when you look for definitions of resilience in a business context, there's one that I really like because it focuses on the value proposition, which is the theme that I'm working on with my company. So as an organizational concept, business model resilience describes the extent to which an organization can maintain or quickly recover its value proposition despite unexpected current or future disruptions. So you can see that business resilience or business model resilience is a strategic instrument and not operational or tactical like crisis management. And what I try to do is to to take these 7 pillars from psychology and put it in a business context. So, and I call them the 7 principles of resilience for businesses. And the first is speed. When we come in such a new situation, we need to ask ourselves, what is needed right now? What are our customers need right now? Are there new customers that need our products? Of course, adaptability to new market conditions, because the market is changing and we always need to adapt and to know what are the new market conditions and adapt our business model to it. Diversity, because we need new responses to those questions that are brought up by these new situations, by this crisis, by other situations that we are facing with and the developments. We need to foster an organization that helps us to bring all those talents together, those different talents, which can then give those answers to the new questions. One important thing, of course, is agility. So when we bring the power of decision and responsibility to the teams who are working with the product, who are working with the sales, who are working in research, then we can adapt faster to the new situation that we are facing. System thinking, so not only isolated, looking at your own team or at your own organization, but the systems that are around your organization and around your team. How are they behavior? How is their behavior right now? How are they reacting to the new situation? How are they reacting to the crisis? Purpose, of course, if you have a North Star and know why you are doing something and where you want to go in the long term, it's easier to find an answer to the question, how will we get there in this new situation? And like Thomas already told you, the outcome orientation is very important, because when such a new situation comes, the first reaction always is to do things faster that we already do, to do more projects, to produce more output. And that is the output ways that Thomas already mentioned in his presentation. But we need to ask the question, what is behind the output? What is that what the customer really needs, and what goals do we strive with the output at the end? And that is something that will make the difference in this case. So now the sales, but how can we incorporate this really in our business or in our business model? And I want to look at this in 2 phases. The first is strategy planning, and the second is strategy implementation. So when we talk about strategy planning, we start about the vision and the mission. And let's say normally you are working with your vision or setting up a new vision every 10 years, every 8 to 10 years. So when you adapt your vision because of a new situation or a crisis, every time your vision might not be so visionary anymore, because the vision needs to be something that is like a North Star, something that endures such crisis and new situations and short-term shocks. And the second is your strategy, and you will revise your strategy every 3 to 5 years, these times more every 3 times, and bring up a new strategy for your organization or for your business. And that's the same. If you always adapt your strategy with some effect or crisis that we are facing, your strategy will not be as strategic as it should be. And the next thing is that you derive molds, midterm goals from your strategy every year, and set top level priorities for your organization. And of course, this is the point where we want to be, because that's the point where I would implement resilience in your strategy planning process. So between strategy and molds. And what I'm proposing you is to make a revision of your strategy with a focus on your business model and your value proposition that is produced by your business model. And as we saw in the definition for business model resilience, your value proposition is really the heart and the core of this resilience. And when it comes to the value proposition, there's one tool that is really simple and easy to use and really helpful, and that's the magic triangle. And for those of you who don't know the magic triangle, it's called magic because it has 4 angles. And it's really focused by its 4 angles on your value proposition of your business. And the first question and the first angle of this triangle is the who question: who is my customer? And when you're facing a new situation, a crisis, you are asking yourself or within your team, did the needs of our customers change through this new situation? Or are there new customers that we can bring benefits with our products, with our services? And the second angle is the what angle. What is my value proposition? How do I react on the customer needs? How do I feed them with my products? And the question in this crisis situation would be, how can we match those new needs with a value proposition? The third one is the how question. How is our value chain? How are our products or services produced? And within this new situation, you would ask yourself, can we produce or adapt our value proposition in a different way to bring it to our customers? And finally, the last one is the value question. So does this business model bring value to our company? Can we adjust our cost structure or the revenue model within this new situation? Or do we have to do this in this new situation? So that's a theory. And because I think that this is really an important tool that you can easily use, let's say once a year, or in an event that you think now we need to adjust our business model, I have brought to you also an example, an easy example. And I took Zoom because we are now within Zoom in this webinar. And you all know that Zoom won the pandemic and not Microsoft Teams, despite Microsoft Teams had all the prerequisites that it had been needed for a good start for its video conferencing tool. But Zoom really had this explosion in using and is used till now by big companies. And I don't know if they have a head of business resilience, but maybe at the start of the pandemic, they asked themselves these questions. And again, starting with who is our customer in the middle of this triangle, the answer is right now everyone needs our service. We have a pandemic, we have home office, we have lockdowns. So everyone needs to have its business contacts or its private contacts at home. So we need a video conferencing tool. So everyone wants to use it. So what the focus should be in this angle of the magic triangle is to how can we onboard them fast and automatically to our service. Second question, the what is our value proposition? Very simple and clear. Simple to use video conferencing is exactly what the world needs now. So we have nothing to do in this angle. Third one, how is our value proposition produced? that also comes for us to a problem, because the more people are using it and they are using it longer, we have a dramatically increase in the usage of our service. So we must ensure stability and availability of our service. And we look at the last one, at the value question. They had a freemium model and still have this freemium model, and this is ideal for onboarding new customers to the service. So when we look at this, finally at the end, we can see where we have to put our strategic pillars, where we have to adjust, because we see that our planning for let's say for the usage for new customers will dramatically increase. So we have to do everything that helps to support this, and this we can incorporate in our strategy. We can incorporate those answers in the definition of molds. So we had the discussion about the strategy planning, and you can see that I have to put this orange arrows here in between the strategy and the molds. So at least yearly refinement of your strategy regarding your business model and the value proposition. And what can we do in the strategy implementation? And I think the answer is simple when we are talking with WorkPath, and when Markus wears this sweater. So yeah, of course, it's objectives and key results. And so what we can do is to put those refined strategy and the molds that are derived from this refined strategy directly in our OKR cycle, which we have normally in a quarterly run, and give those molds in the OKR planning, and then the cycle starts. And why OKR? Let's check the 7 principles here with the OKR and what stands OKR for. So OKR has this 3 months OKR cycle instead of a 1-year strategy planning, for example, at MBO, I mentioned by objectives. So we can check speed and we can check adaptability. OKRs are top-down and bottom-up, and at least 50% of the objectives should be coming bottom-up from the teams. So we can check diversity and we can check agility. Objectives always strive to produce a value for a customer, be it an internal or be it an external customer. So we can say that we are not only talking about ourselves, how can we react, or what is the best reaction for our company. We always focus on the customer in the OKR process. And additionally, we have this alignment between the teams and between the departments in an organization. So we are not looking only in our system, we are looking in the systems that are around us and how they are reacting on our actions and how we can react on their actions. And finally, also Thomas mentioned this in his presentation, that we have outcome-oriented objectives in OKRs. Those are derived from the strategy, from the purpose, from the vision of the company, and are published in a transparent way within the whole organization. So we can also check purpose and outcome here. And that's why I say that OKRs have those built-in resilience, because all those 7 principles are checked within OKR with just simply looking at what OKR does and how OKRs are implemented in a company. When we bring this all together in just one chart, I tried to do this in this double diamond approach that you can see here. So I'm proposing this this first diamond as the strategy refinement process, and I think you need to do this at least yearly, or when you think that you need to do this because you're facing a new situation. You start with the discover phase, so you do a business model review, ideal with the magic triangle. Then you can define a new strategy or your top level priorities for this year with the strategy refinement. Those top level priorities for me are the same like the most. So midterm goals, 1 year goals, how you like to call it. And you give this in the quarterly OKR process. Then the OKR drafting process starts with the development phase, and then the OKR refinement with the alignment between the teams and the departments and the vertical alignment, then brings all together in the in OKR sets that are defined and that are aligned within the whole organization. And finally, you kick it off. To sum it up, altogether, resilience is not about being the strongest or the biggest. And it's not about the one who has everything double so that you can react. Resilience is about being faster, smarter, and more adaptable in these kind of new situations. According to your business model, it's really important to focus on your customers, on the value proposition, and on the outcome for your customers. And finally, OKRs are faster, smarter, and more adaptable than other goal-setting systems and frameworks. And for me, they have this built-in resilience. Now I talked a lot. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Markus. Great insights, great presentation. I'm sure there's going to be a few questions. My colleague Teresa mentioned it already. If you have any questions for Markus, for myself, please look at the Q&A function in Zoom. You will find it at the bottom. There is one that has already popped up. So take a moment and feel free to put them in there as well. While you do, I'm having a look at the questions and I read them out to you, Markus, so we can have a look at that. So Robert had a question asking, in what way are OKRs faster, smarter, and more adaptable than other goal-setting frameworks?
Yes, thank you, Robert. When you, most of the other frameworks like management by objectives focusing a yearly period, and OKRs are focused on this quarterly period. So let's maybe when we have an example and you look at the past, and that's what I'm always saying, those yearly plays, those yearly plans that the organizations are writing right now. I don't know if this is only a paper that we can throw away in a few months, because when you look at last year, you had you made up a new strategy for the 22, and then the war started. So just after 2 months, you could throw your strategy away because everything was different. And when you look at the OKR process, then maybe your first quarter was not going in the right direction because now you have new situations because of the war. But already the second quarter of 22 could be adapted. Your goals, your objectives could be adapted to the new situation of the war, and that means that they are faster and more adaptable to such situations.
Awesome. Robert, let us know if that made sense. If you have any follow-up questions, thank you very much, Markus. There are more questions coming in. Next one is from Alain. What are the cultural conditions to use OKR?
That might be a question for you.
Yeah, so indeed, and Alain, let me also ask a question back to you, and you can clarify as well. Cultural as in from a company's culture perspective, or more from a, what is the right term here? From a people's culture in different countries perspective. But I'm guessing you're looking at the company's culture perspective. Let me just know and clarify. And while you do, I'm jumping to the next question really quick and then get back to you in just a second. Johan also had a question. Are OKRs measured often, or OKR measures often focused on success factors that show early indications for outcomes? So happy to take that one as well, but Markus, let me know if you want to chime in.
Yes, why not? I don't know if I get the question right, Johan. So I try to answer it, and then you can just write me if this was a good question to your answer. I would, when you take a step back, the organization, the management says these are my top priorities for this year or for this quarter. And I want those objectives to be led in this quarter. And teams, so they say the what will be achieved in this quarter, and the teams now think about the how. How can we really work with our team on these objectives? How can we bring in outcomes that support this? And so I would say yes, that these success factors are showing these early indicators, because the outcome sticks in the OKR. I don't know if this answers. I would say yes, because the OKR are always drafted with this focus on outcomes. And I would say yes.
Awesome.
Maybe
thank you, Markus.
Maybe this should be incorporated also in the process, that we say let's focus on the success factors here. Why not?
Yeah, and I definitely, if I may add, I would underscore this idea of really looking at these early or leading indicators, because going back to what Markus has mentioned and how we're using OKRs also to break down what we do into shorter cycles. If you have these early indicators, this can already give you along the way either the indication that you're going to actually achieve your goal, or have an opportunity to jump in and maybe solve any challenges that come up along the way. And that is sometimes not, or that is most often not possible if you're looking at traditional KPIs and lagging indicators, where you already kind of, in the worst case, messed up, and then you can't course correct. Cool. Then we had, I want to go back to Alain, who now has replied and said he meant from the perspective of the company and the company culture. Let me just start, and then Markus, feel free to jump in at any point in time. I think the two ideas of changing our company culture, and not just OKRs in general, but moving into a more agile way of working, are very tightly interconnected. So when you look at OKRs and introducing a more agile way of working, it is inevitably also connected to a change process that you will have to consider and figure out, because you're not just moving to a tool or to a new framework, you're really looking to change the way that people think, change their mindsets, how they collaborate, for them to take more ownership, more accountability. So all of that comes with the idea of OKRs, and that's typically not something that we've trained our workforce in the past decades. It has worked really well when we gave them a task, we gave them some input, and we asked for output. Now, in today's economy, where you want to be swift, as Markus, and adapt to all of these changes that come from the environment, some of them being unforeseen, COVID being the prime example, this is something that needs to change in people's minds, and hence also in the culture as a whole. So that would be my 2 cents to that question.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Cool. Then we have another question, and I hope I'm not butchering the name, from Afzul. Could you expand on the concept of OKRs being both top-down and bottom-up?
Yes, I tried to earlier. what comes from management are those top level priorities, and of course also objectives set up by the management, so top down. But also teams have the possibility to think about their contribution to these top level priorities. So what can I do as service and support? What can I do as marketing? What can I do as human resources to support those top level goals? And what is my plan for the next quarter to support those key results or those objectives? And what we like to have is something between 50% and 60% bottom up, and the rest coming down. And this, for me, this is also the key why OKRs bring new motivation to the workforce, because they can decide how they can contribute. And like between the hierarchies, because maybe they don't really stick together, but this is something that we can fix then in the alignment.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I quickly want to go to Johan before I jump to the other questions, because he also added to his earlier question. I'm very sorry. There was just a fly that I swallowed when I was trying to speak. Give me 1 second. Perfect for a live webcast.
Yeah, I can jump.
Some protein in the morning.
Yeah,
go ahead.
That's good. Johan, yes, thank you. I would say that Thomas brought up these leading indicators versus lagging indicators discussion in his presentation, and that's absolutely what we like to have in the OKRs. We want leading indicators that are pushing our outcome, and not lagging indicators that can only measure what we have achieved. That maybe this explains a bit the situation or my understanding of this. And so I would say, yes, you also need those success factors. And maybe if success factors is is your word for leading indicators in our OKR sets. Absolutely. Cool.
And maybe I'm also looking at this question from a different angle, and I hope I understand it right. Just to add to that, I want to also tie it back to this idea of shifting the mindsets and the culture of a company when you look at drivers for these outcomes, because I think it's often very important also to ask critical questions that typically you don't ask when you are in your one-to-one sessions and you are maybe only looking at your dashboards and KPIs. But as a manager, really assuming this position of a coach and asking people, look, what do you do actually? Why do you do what you're doing? How does that pay into our goals? And what can you maybe prioritize or deprioritize to support the goal that we have now set for a given short cycle? So to really also educate, once again, these mindsets of people to think in different ways and think more for themselves and what they're trying to achieve and how they can contribute to your overarching goal with the expertise and knowledge that they have, to slowly but surely shift this idea of working in a more outcome-oriented way. All right, then let's have a look at the question from Dan. What is a typical time frame to move from OKR drafting to refinement to kickoff? Markus, if you're okay, I'm just gonna give a short answer myself and then feel free to add. So for one, it depends on the cycle length, but typically what we see is around 2 weeks, 2 to 3, 4 weeks, depending on the size of the is also drafting before you kick off a new cycle, that you start with the drafting. And then refinement and even alignment is something that can already happen in that process as you draft, talk to other teams, align the goals that you have, and understand how you're trying to prioritize the resources and goals that you have. So it could be done as quickly as doing everything on one day. We have customers that do that, that have set up a very agile and also a very they have protected the time to do that in a very short time frame. But then we see also other larger customers who need a little bit more time based on the structures and the meetings and the rhythms that they have. So it's a process that could take also 2 to 3 or 4 weeks looking at that. That would be my few cents on that. All right. Then moving to the question from Robert. Is there, very good one. Is there a way to measure resilience of an organization? What would be examples of KPIs or other indicators to give executives an idea about the current state of the company's resilience?
Yeah, that's a good question. And to be honest, I see resilience more as a qualitative concept, not as a quantitative. And I understand the question about KPIs, and I understand that management always wants to have measurements and some kind of dashboard where they can see where they are or where they stand. But I don't know if this really can bring resilience to one figure. So I saw time to recover as a KPI. That may be one. If you take the state of event and then the time frame that you need to adapt to this new situation, and on the other hand, I would say it's the usual KPIs like profit, revenues, sales, and so on. Because what we see is that resilient businesses recover faster, but not only on the same level that before, but on a higher level. So the business Harvard Business Manager made a study on this, and they showed that the resilient businesses had a shorter recovery phase, but then had higher incomes, higher profits, higher sales than before the event, and maybe those are then KPIs that we have to look at.
Cool. And just from Robert, also building on his question, following up, are there also leading indicators for resilience, not only lagging indicators like profit or time to recover?
I think I have to answer this later.
Okay, so we get back to you on that one, Robert. Thank you very much for the question. Then we had one more comment also from Emil. It is not always easy to measure outcome results in one circle, meaning 3 months timeframes. Can be too short time to measure perception and satisfaction of user and customer. So I'm going to start with that one. That's totally right. I think this is once again where this concept of leading and lagging measurements comes in, because if you think about perception or satisfaction, those are rather lagging indicators where you have done something, and as a result of what you did, you can then measure the perception or the satisfaction of a customer afterwards. But there are many more things that actually go into building that perception or making up for that satisfaction. So what we're trying to do also in shifting that mindset is thinking about other measurements that you might have not thought of before, but you're doing already most often. How can you look at those and then build these hypotheses, as in, if I do this and that, and if I measure that in a leading way, is this influencing my perception or my satisfaction in whichever way? And so by doing that, and once again, having an opportunity to work in really short cycles, which also give you an opportunity to experiment, you can then over time figure out, hey, what are the things that I'm doing? What are the leading things that I can measure that in the end then also help me impact my lagging indicators, such as perception and satisfaction? All right. So as of now, I don't see any more questions in the Q&A, but I want to still give you a few more moments if more questions or follow-up questions or even comments came up. Thank you very much for all of those who have been asking already. Let us know if there is more that you want to know from us.
Leading indicators, according to Robert's question, could be let's say the amount of discussions from the sales department with the customers. Because when you go back in your mind to the magic triangle, you see that the first question is, who is my customer? How do they react to the situation? How do the needs of our customers change? And so the first one that comes to my mind when it comes to leading indicators is really this working with the client. So, and that's a typical answer of a consultant. It depends. When you are in a B2B business, maybe with your key accounts, that they put your key clients all together and start the discussion about these questions. When you are a B2C business, maybe with asking them through polls or something like this. And this for me could be the first answer to the questions with the leading indicators.
Awesome. All right. I don't see any more questions in the Q&A for now. So with that, first and foremost, I want to say thank you so much, Markus, for bringing all your insights and knowledge to the table. It was a pleasure to have you here. I already saw loads of positive comments in the chat as well. So thanks again for being with us today. This is the end of our webinar. Thanks everyone who joined, and let's see if I get that right by looking at the cities and countries that you provided in the beginning. But I want to say thank you, danke, obrigado, bedankt, tak, which is true, I hope, for Denmark and Sweden, and grazie. So thank you very much. See you in the next webinar. Find all the information about it on our website, the channels. Make sure to check out Markus and his company, and also have a listen at his podcast. With that, I wish you a great rest of your Wednesday and see you again soon. Take care.
Thanks a lot. See you. Goodbye.